We are so sorry for your loss. We knew Ken in different ways, as a husband and a father, as a brother, and I want to acknowledge that Elise is watching, streaming today. As a partner and as a friend, you were his friends and his colleagues, you were his confidants. And these past 2 weeks, all of us have been his cheerleaders. And we saw in Ken what we often wish we could see in ourselves. For me, it was that smile with his mustache and always looking perfectly put together. I tried my hardest today, but I'm not sure I did it enough. A consummate professional, an athlete, and a golfer, a determined soul who knew that if he wanted something to happen, by all means, he would make it happen. A kind and warm-hearted person who could talk with anyone and everyone he met and would help you as much as he possibly could. I have heard many people share with me this week the feeling that Ken's life ended too early. And we are living with that painful reality. At times like these, there are often questions asked that have no answers. And we're not going to try to answer them today. Instead, we're going to do what we can do. We can remember Ken, we can support his family, we can support and comfort one another, recognizing the power that one man can have on all of our lives and in community. And that is precisely what community does. It shows up for one another when we are sick. Community shows up for each other when we are celebrating joys. It comes together to share in the pain and loss and support those who survive and those who mourn. So it's precisely at times like this, when we don't know exactly what to say, that we turn to the ancient words of our ancestors and our ancient tradition. These are words that have comforted and supported our people in times of light and in times of darkness, in times of life and in times of death. For those who would like to recite it with me, I invite you to recite the words of Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
A poem by Maya Angelou called When Great Trees Fall. When great trees fall, rocks on distant hills shudder. Lions hunker down in tall grasses, and even elephants lumber after safety. When great trees fall in forests, small things recoil into silence, their senses eroded beyond fear. When great souls die, the air around us becomes light, rare, sterile. We breathe briefly. Our eyes briefly see with a hurtful clarity. Our memory, suddenly sharpened, examines, gnaws on kind words unsaid, promised walks never taken. Great souls die, and our reality bound to them takes leave of us. Our souls, dependent upon their nurture, now shrink wizened. Our minds, formed and informed by their radiance, fall away. We are not so much maddened as reduced to the unutterable ignorance of dark, cold caves. And when great souls die, after a period, peace blooms. Slowly and always irregularly. Spaces fill with a kind of soothing electric vibration. Our senses restored, never to be the same, whisper to us. They existed. They existed. We can be and be better, for they existed. We can be, and we can be better because Ken Faberman existed as part of our lives. He died so suddenly that some of us are filled with regret that we might not have told him how much his smiles and warmth and presence meant to us. For Ken taught us how to stop and to connect and to care. I just ran into him less than a month ago at the Harris Teeter on Park Road, and I heard this is not unfamiliar because Ken went to the teeter many times a day to get things for those around him. In Ken's style, he stopped in the aisle, the candy aisle, to have a long conversation with me and to catch up. That was Ken, always making time for his family and for others. People mattered to him. We mattered to him, and he mattered to us. As Maya Angelou said, he existed, and we can be and be better, for he existed. And we can be and be better also as a congregation because of Ken. This was his home. He made it the center of his life. For 27 years, he was part of our Temple family. Temple Bethel grounded him. Our temple centered him. As we gave to him, he gave to us. How can I help? He'd always stop by and ask. As you will hear, Ken was a good person, a good father and grandfather, a good friend with a good heart who will be missed. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we will remember him. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we will remember him. In the opening of buds and in the rebirth of spring, we will remember him. In the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we will remember him. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we will remember him. When we are weary and in need of strength, we will remember him. When we are lost and sick at heart, we will remember him. When we have joys we yearn to share, we will remember him. When we have decisions that are difficult to make, we will remember him. And when we have achievements that are based on his, we will remember him. For as long as we live, Ken Faberman too will live, for he is now a part of us as we remember him. Adonai Natan. Adonai lakach yehi shem Adonai mevarach. God has given and God has sadly taken away. Blessed be God's name. We take some time for silence to reflect on our memories and on our relationship with Ken that lifted our lives. As we reflect on Maya Angelou's words, they existed. They existed. We can be, and be better because Ken existed.
Yehu leratzonim refi, v'hegyon libi lefanecha, Adonai tzuri v'goali. And may the meditations of our hearts and our mouths be acceptable in your sight, O God, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. It's my honor to invite forward Asher Flaum, the son of Ken's dear, dear friend, David Flaum and Wendy. Asher, please come forward.
Well, it's an honor to be here, speaking on behalf of Ken. It's just been such a big part of my life, and to be in this sanctuary here at the synagogue, that meant so much to him, so that was nice to hear. Thank you very much. Like the rabbi said, my name is Asher Flaum, and I feel like I'm here representing Kenny's extended family in Rochester, and we came down from Rochester, New York. Kenny and Christine have many close friends in Rochester that will deeply miss Kenny and cherish the memories that they made together. To us, he was Uncle Kenny, and I was probably 16 years old before I knew he actually wasn't my uncle. So Kenny, Chrissy, and the girls have always been part of my life for as long as I can remember. Kenny met my father, David, as two guys living in Rochester that weren't from the area. They became fast friends. It turns out they were kindred spirits and developed a friendship that would last a lifetime. There are many memories that we've made together: summers at the lake house, Christmas week Aspen ski trips, St. Thomas trips, Washington, D.C., and Kenny even made it into the White House. When our families were together, we always had a good time, and we lived life to the fullest, which is an important lesson that Kenny and David taught us, and we continue it today. From talking to some people before the service here, it sounds like we all know that Kenny was famous for being able to fall asleep anywhere. And there's a great story that one time he fell asleep on the chairlift skiing, and he went up and around the top station and went right back down the hill. He was passed out cold. So that was, something that we always loved about Ken. And I know that he fell in love with Charlotte right away and was so proud to, be part of this community and a member at Piper Glen. I know that meant a lot to him. And he's been telling us, we're in the real estate business, he's been telling us for 20 years that we should buy property here, and we never did, but in retrospect, he probably was right. But his true love was his family, and every time we spoke, all he wanted to talk about was Casey and Natalie's accomplishments, and lately it was what was happening with his grandchildren. And he was just so proud of you girls, always. It's all he said. And having lost my father just 2 years ago, the best advice I can give to you, Casey and Natalie, is to honor your father's legacy. Make sure you continue to talk about him often with your kids, with his grandkids, and do the things that he enjoyed doing. And, let the kids be part of those activities. So in closing, I'd just like to say that our family, Lauren is here, my brother, and my sister Sarah, my mother Eileen, and our godmother Wendy's here, and from all the people in Rochester that deeply care about you guys. We will always cherish the special memories that we had together. So we love you, Ken. We're with you.
Invite forward our past president, Larry Farber, and good friend.
Thank you for allowing me to do this. This past Monday, May 8th, Ken Faberman's heart failed him. But he had a good heart. He had the best heart of anyone that I ever knew. Ken would do anything that you've heard for anybody, whether you knew him or not. He would come up to you and take care of you and do whatever was needed. That was just Ken. As an example, ask my good friend and our golfing buddy, Fred Dumas. When Fred and Marcy would go out of town, Ken lived in the Piper Glen neighborhood, and every day that they were gone, he would go to their house, pick up their mail, sort it, and occasionally pay a few bills. I'm kidding about paying the bills, but I'm not kidding about the fact that he would go pick up their mail for them. He did that out of love. In that same spirit of kindness and thoughtfulness, Ken once again offered his assistance to my own mom. My mom attended the first One for All ball that we did here at the temple as a fundraiser. She left a little early, and when she went to her car, she had a flat tire. Well, of course, Ken to the rescue. He called AAA, he waited for her, made sure she got home safely. That was just who Ken was. There wasn't a day that went by in my life that Ken would not call me, ask me how my parents were doing. Fortunately, my mom at 93 and Dad at 99 are still with me. But Ken would talk about how lucky I was because his mom passed away at 55 and his dad in the 70s. So he would always talk about how lucky I was to have my two parents. Ken knew no strangers, as Rabbi Schindler talked about, whether he was on the golf course, at a restaurant, anywhere. He knew no strangers. He had no inhibitions about going up to any stranger and introducing himself. Hi, I'm Ken Faberman. Where are you from? I'm from Pittsburgh. Game on. And we knew all of these stories because Ken and all of us heard those stories every day, so we all knew them. His favorite story, as we know, was about Arnold Palmer, getting to know him through his dad back at home. Arnold once wrote a letter for him when he wanted to play this famous golf course in Europe to get him on, and he told everybody that he knew about this great Arnold Palmer story. And, of course, Ken drank Arnold Palmer's every day when we were at Piper Glen. Ken also talked about his friend Margie with me because I'm a piano player, and he told me about this great friend Margie who taught all the celebrities in Hollywood. He was so proud to share that with me. He also talked about Yetta and Janie Farber, who lived in Pittsburgh. He thought they were my relatives, but I told Ken they were not. But it was another thing that we got to talk about. Ken knew everyone who lived in Piper Glen. He knew how many children they had. He knew what jobs they had. He knew everything about them. That was Ken. He knew who was playing golf every day and every tee time. He loved that. And we kidded him about it, but I'm serious. He was incredible. When Ken moved to a new neighborhood, he quickly endeared himself to all the families that were around there. And most recently, he made friends with elderly neighbors who lived above him. And he would talk about doing their shopping, taking them to the doctors, and just being their friends. It was an incredible show of kindness. That was Ken, and that's what made him special. Ken had many passions. He loved everything Pittsburgh, especially his Steelers. Playing golf all over the world was his great joy. During those trips, he collected hats and shirts, and on top of all the clothes he had room full of all that memorabilia. He loved playing Jim Rummy with his buddies at Piper Glen. He would challenge me occasionally, and I would let him beat me, but I had a good time with him. Our golf group, which included Jonathan Howard, Fred Dumas, Mickey Gold, Barry Leonard, Steve Rayfield, spent many great days on the golf courses. We took numerous golf trips to Blowing Rock, Hilton Head, Scottsdale, Arizona, and many more places. One of the great days of my life was taking Ken to the Masters and walking those beautiful grounds. We had a wonderful day. And as was previously mentioned, Ken was a great athlete playing college ball as a freshman in Washington. Yes, we've already talked about Ken loving his clothes. He did love his clothes. And we would come to the golf course. He dressed perfectly. There wasn't a stain on a shirt. Everything was matched. It was incredible. And he owned more clothes than anybody that I knew. My boys were the recipients of many of those hand-me-downs that still had the tags on them. Honestly, about 2 years ago, Ken lost a lot of weight. And one day, there's a knock on my door, and he had a trunk load of shorts, shirts, pants. I mean, it was unbelievable. He said, "Here, you got to take them. Give them to your boys. Wear them." And, I finally, about a week ago, got rid of about half of them. But that was Ken. It was his love, his way of giving, and it was his way of being generous. He loved all the women in his life, Christine, Casey, and Natalie. And as you talked about, would talk about them incessantly on the golf course. He would drop everything, even during the middle of a 2-under round, which weren't very often, and come see you guys, babysit, because that's what he loved. He loved those beautiful grandchildren, Natalie. Ken will now be reunited with his parents and his brother, who he lost at an early age. And he will have an entirely new audience with whom he can share his many stories. And the best part is he can now tell Arnold Palmer the Arnold Palmer story. Ken, we'll miss you, your warm smile, your abundant kindness, and that good heart.
A few announcements. Following the service, the family is going to gather in the atrium in the hallway for a receiving line. There is a minyan this evening gathering here at 7 p.m. At Temple Bethel, and the service will be led by Rabbi Erdheim. And we'll gather here at 7 p.m. and there'll be a reception right afterwards. On Saturday, the family is going to receive guests beginning at 11 a.m. through 2 p.m. at the home of Natalie and Mike. Their address is 1401 Heather Lane. Again, 1401 Heather Lane. And there is parking across the street at the Park Road Shopping Center by the Harris Teeter. If you need that address and you weren't writing that down, that's not a problem. We have the information on strips of paper at the front desk. And so as you are leaving the building today, or if you come back for Minyan tonight, you can get the information with the times and the address and information about the parking. In the realm of music, there is a symphony that stands apart from the rest. Unlike the traditional symphony that has 3 or 4 or perhaps 5 movements, the symphony only has one. And the reason for this is simple. The composer, Franz Schubert, never had the chance to finish it. After writing the first movement, he placed it in his drawer, and before he could complete it, he passed away. Consequently, it is known as the Unfinished Symphony. Even though Schubert didn't get the chance to complete his symphony, the entire world is richer because of the masterpiece. And despite its incomplete state, it is a sublime work of art. A life left incomplete is similar to an unfinished symphony. There's a sense of profound regret that we aren't privileged to see Ken's life lived. Ken's passing leaves us mourning, and the unfinished years are really painful. Yet we can be thankful for the beautiful memories and the incredible life that he led. An unfinished symphony. His life was a masterpiece. In the Jewish tradition, we often say that when a loved one passes away, some of the light goes out of the world. And it's apparent for Ken's family and our community that Ken's life is both an unfinished masterpiece, and today for us, our world is darker because of the death of such a warm, charismatic, and dedicated man. The pictures I have of Ken in my mind, whether it was at Temple Bethel or a gathering at Piper Glen or about town, and I imagine the pictures of him as in business meetings include, as we've all heard today, the smile that he had, his warmth, which truly radiated. His kind-hearted nature was matched by a persistent hope, and they signified to everyone that Ken really lived a life of compassion and kindness. Ken was born into a loving family in Pittsburgh, and Ken was the middle child of Marty and Rita, and he shared a special bond with his siblings, David and Elise. He and his brother David were especially close, and Ken deeply admired his mother Rita, who instilled in him a love for cooking and friendships. Ken's father, Marty, played a significant role in his life, shaping his professional and personal values. Ken held his father in the highest regard, even following him into the furniture business. Marty was known as Pop-Up to his grandchildren, and when Ken became a grandfather, well, he knew exactly the name that he wanted to. He became Pop-Pop as well. Ken was his father's caddy and played golf with him. Ken learned to dress like his father and mother, both immaculate dressers. And his sister Elise told a funny story that she remembered once when Ken got angry, and as a kid, he ran away. And he left the house immaculately dressed and carrying his button-down shirts over his shoulder on hangers so that they wouldn't wrinkle. Ken had an immaculate sense of style, from his carefully organized clothing to his collection of shoes that were in the boxes with wooden shoe horns. He was a man who relished the finer things in life, and as Larry said, was always so well dressed, known for his clean appearance and attention to detail. The finer things weren't about being showy. That's not the point. Not in the slightest. It was a way of showing outwardly Ken's persona, which radiated confidence and charm. He carried this aura of positivity and warmth wherever he went, making him not just approachable, but magnetic. Ken met the love of his life, Christine, in Chicago. Their love story blossomed from a chance meeting at a restaurant and then in maybe a bar, but it was a chance meeting at a restaurant, and then weeks later at a dry cleaner. She had actually, sort of tossed his number, and then saw him again at the dry cleaner, and then realized that he looked like something that had come out of a GQ magazine. And within months, they had moved to Texas together. Within months. Natalie was sort of confirming yesterday, and it was really within months. And Ken loved Christine, and he found in you a partner and a strong bond and a lifetime of commitment and love. He loved traveling with you, and of course I think he loved the perks of traveling with you too, which meant playing golf in Scotland while you were continuing to work and having to make more flights. He loved the trips with family and friends, the skiing and the lake house as we've heard about, and being active with you. Ken's love for you, Christine, was a defining part of his life, manifesting in small acts of love and grand gestures alike. Ken's love language were acts of service and support, as we've heard about. Whether it was doing the dishes after dinner, and apparently he knew exactly how to do the dishes and put them in the dishwasher, or going the extra mile to find the exact item that was requested by Christine or his daughters, Natalie and Casey, Ken derived joy from helping others, but particularly his family. His friends and his family knew him as a man who would do anything for those that he cared about, creating a legacy of service and kindness. Need berries from a particular type of milk? He'd go from store to store to store to store to make sure that he got exactly what was requested or needed, literally the definition of going the extra mile. He found joy in making people's lives better. Ken was a dedicated father and grandfather. He went to great lengths to ensure his daughters, Natalie and Casey, felt loved and cared for, from lullaby drives around the neighborhood until your eyelids grew heavy, to comforting them in times of heartbreak. From traveling for business and then making sure to show up at school events and games, from sitting on his lap giggling as you pretended to drive the car as he drove, or carrying you on his shoulders and singing songs together as you strolled through the neighborhood, to sharing magical moments at Disney World or creating memories that would last a lifetime. You always knew that your dad was here for you. Ken's love for you was immeasurable and unequivocal. You never had to question his pride in you or his dedication to providing for you. His devotion was evident in every sacrifice he made, every moment he spent with you, and every memory that you created together. And as a grandfather, his adoration for his grandchildren was also unparalleled. Whether it was taking them to the park or reading them books or just spending quality time, Ken's affection and profound love for his family was evident He was so proud of each of you for who you are and who you are becoming. So proud of the choices that you have made and the choices that you will make and the path that you are walking. Ken loved his family deeply, and he wanted nothing more than to see you grow and become the best versions of yourselves. The light of his life will shine on forever on your path and on your journey. Ken's life took him across the country, and after attending American University, he moved to Lenore, North Carolina, which I didn't even know existed, and then to New York and Chicago, and then to Texas and to Charlotte. And everywhere he went, he made deep friendships, including his friendship with David. And Asher, I'm sure he would have loved what you said. These friendships extended beyond the casual get-togethers to family vacations and shared experiences. To know and be loved by Ken was to have Ken bring you into his family as an Uncle Ken. To see Ken as the dad or uncle or friend that you never knew you had, but whom had been with you and cheering you on. Ken was dedicated and adaptable in his profession. He started his career as a manufacturer's representative, showcasing his aptitude for sales and building meaningful relationships. Ken's unique ability to connect with people, whether it meant adopting a Southern accent while dealing with a client in Alabama, or going the extra mile to ensure satisfaction, made him stand out in his field. His hard work and dedication led him to roles such as the Vice President of Business and Development, whether it was at Hickory Hill Furniture, or Viewpoint Leatherworks, or Bernhardt, and most recently Cummings Construction. Some of his professional colleagues, like Sandy Rose and Bob Lynch, they reached out to me this week to share their memories. Bob Lynch told me that how he and Ken would play tennis together, and Bob said of Ken, quote, "Ken was my mentor at Bernhardt Furniture years ago. He was a man of integrity, an athlete in sports, and a true family lifelong friend. His belief was that if you're going to do something new in life, give it your all and do it right." Ken always recognized the importance of integrity and dedication in his work and the people around him. He loved to play sports and enjoyed golfing and watching sports and playing cards at the club and dining with his friends. He was, as we've heard, an active and proud member of Temple Bethel. In his neighborhood, as Larry was sort of describing, his neighbors, who are really of a different generation, affectionately referred to Ken as the mayor. Ken's natural ability to connect with people, his genuine interest in their lives, and his eagerness to lend a hand whenever needed made him a beloved figure in his community. And if you looked at Ken and you saw that smile, you will have seen a satisfaction in life that he created, with family and friends and professional commitments and hard work, all of which was to support his family and his friends and the things that he was dedicated to. And this, I think, in many ways, exemplifies him. Ken was a simple man. Not simplistic, but simple in the best sense of the term. Because Ken's life taught us simple, straightforward, and profound lessons. Like playing cards, we may not always have the best hand in life, but we can play those cards well. We can educate ourselves and excel in our careers. We can provide for our family and be devoted to our spouse and children and grandchildren. We can bring joy and laughter into a room. We can live with the values that no person, no task is beneath you. We can go the extra mile, turn a stranger into a friend, to not shrink from a challenge, nor shirk a responsibility, to cherish what we have, and choose to embrace life. One of the most powerful and simple teachings of the Mishnah, a classic text written almost 2,000 years ago, reflects the core of Ken and what we should remember today. Ezuhu ashir hasamach bechelko. Who is rich? The one who is content with his lot. That is simplicity at its finest. To work hard, to be content with what we have, to cherish the people who surrounded us, to embrace the life that was given to us, and to lighten a room, but never to treat a responsibility lightly. To keep your head down in determination, but let the mountains, particularly the ski mountains, lift your soul and your family fill your heart. A legacy of simplicity in the very best sense of the word. On this day of sadness, the task is now ours to hold high and to hold close our images of Ken. Our task is to hold close not just the images, but the stories that they tell of a brother, a husband, a father, a brother-in-law, a fun-loving friend, a story of simple and profound legacy. We thank God because Ken Faberman lived. Those memories and our own paths now will no doubt be lit warmly and well by his memory, by his spirit, by the undying legacy of that smile. Ken Faberman, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, may the memory of the righteous always abide in blessing. Amen. I invite you to please rise with the words of El Malei Rachamim. El Malei Rachamim shochen bamromim Hamsei menucha nechona tachat kanfei ashkina Im keroshim utorim kezohar harakia mazhirim Et nishmat ish hatov Ken Faberman shalach leolamo Ba'aharachamim yastirehu Beseter knafav leolamim Vayitzor b'tzor hachaim et nishmato Adonai hu nachalato V'yanoch b'shalom al mishkavo V'nomar Amen. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Ken, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let him find refuge in your eternal presence and let his soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is Ken's inheritance. May Ken rest in peace. And let us all say, Amen. In our Jewish tradition, the words of Kaddish Yatom, the mourner's Kaddish, do not speak of death, but thank God for the life that was lived. We continue with the words of Kaddish Yatom, thanking God for Ken's life. Yitkadal vayitkadash shemei rabbah, be'alma divra chirute v'yamlich malchute, b'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chaye dechol beit Yisrael, ba'gala uv'yizman kariv v'imru, Amen. Yehe shemei rabbah mevarach le'olam olamei olamaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, V'yithadar v'yithalev v'yithalal shemed kudusha barichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechemata. Da'amiram be'ama v'imru. Amen. Yehe shlama rabba min shemaya. V'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. V'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom bimromav. Hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. V'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom bimromav. Hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru. Amen. I invite all who are gathered here to repeat these words after me, speaking them directly to Ken's family. May God console you with all who mourn in Zion and Jerusalem. Hamakom yinachem etchem b'toch sha'ar avlei Tzion v'Yerushalayim. Now we go forth in peace to life. The family will exit first. Invite everyone to please stay standing where you are, and there will be a reception line in the atrium.